Welcome back to Artists Exposed with Tym Moss. I am Tym Moss, and I am here today with one of the most incredible human beings, I swear to God, that I know, and I know a lot of people, Mr. Adam LINN. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tim. Thank you so much. And when it comes to incredible human beings, I think Tim would be at the top of that list, and funny, and has a warm heart, which is what we really love around here, right, Tim?
I love a warm heart, too. Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you very much. That's very sweet. But, oh, my God, it's been so long since we've seen each other.
It has been a while. It's been a while. I like to pretend time never passes.
Right.
But in 2008, I cast Tim in my movie Before We Get to Seattle.
Yes.
And I remember you came for the audition, Tim, and at that point, it was kind of guerrilla filmmaking. I didn't necessarily have a part for Tim, and I said, he left, and I said, I don't care what we do. That guy's in our movie, right?
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, he's going to come to life on the screen, and you did, right? You did.
Well, thank you.
And there aren't a lot of people handing around $1 million to blind filmmakers. And so I was like, Tim is the kind of guy who comes out to Brooklyn for an audition, and I think we have that spirit, Tim, right? I mean, that's what I love about New York. That's what I love about art and making art. It's like, wow, you never know what you're going to turn up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, there's so many people in the city, you never know who's going to walk through the door.
No, and you think you do, right? You get jaded after a while. You're like, oh, I kind of know. No, I don't know.
Yeah. The city will surprise you every time. Oh, my goodness. Now, in addition to being an actor and a playwright and an author, screenwriter and director, an essayist.
Wow, I do a lot of things.
A father, a son, a husband. Right. Am I missing anything?
I used to be a waiter. we can tell. That's a different interview. We'll tell that story, But yeah, that's all true.
That kind of covers it.
A lot of writing, a lot of stories, and I think as I get older, Tim, it's. We all feel the same things, right? It's a lot of love, hopefully, a lot of emotions, a lot of challenges, and let's talk about them, right?
Yes, I think absolutely. Well, the thing is you are just such a master storyteller, just so incredible, and we've got so much to cover. But firstly, why don't we start off with your show?
Okay.
Let's talk about your show. It's called Sped Kid, which you can see right there on his shirt.
Yes. I'm wearing my own merch. That's how it goes. I will get him a shirt later. Don't worry.
And that it's currently playing at Theater Row at 42nd Street and 9th Avenue in what used to be the Lion Theater. It's Theater One now. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And they also sold out. You completely sold out for the April 5th performance.
Completely sold out.
Oh, my God, that's great.
And the thing we love about Theater Row, that theater, it's fully accessible. So people in a wheelchair or the area is fully accessible, and that's really important that, everyone can enjoy the show. But yeah, we sold out Friday night. Oh, my God, Tim, I wish you'd been there. It was Midtown Manhattan. A full house.
Wow.
It went very well. A lot of applause. We went out to eat afterwards at the West Bank Cafe, and I thought, kill me now. This is it, right? This is it. I mean, you wait a long time for that. And you don't know what's going to come, right?
Right.
And I mean, we even had some technical problems ahead of the show where the speakers weren't working, and I was like, please, theater gods. And everything, the cable came to life, and
great.
Oh my God, Tim, I have to say, I mean, can I blow my own horn? I mean,
please.
I have a wonderful, wonderful director. His name is Patrick Lillis. He's an expert director. He runs the Farm Theater, and he brought so much expertise, theater expertise, to my kind of raw storytelling. And we had a wonderful lighting designer, a wonderful sound designer, and our stage manager in the booth was like a magician. And I felt like, wow, who wrote this play? Right. 'Cause I
hardly recognize it.
Exactly. I'm enjoying it, and I think people really enjoyed the additional touches that the director had brought. So
nice. Now, I hope you did take some time to really enjoy the moment and absorb all that.
I really did. I really did, Tim. Good. And it's like the advantage of no longer being in your 20s and being in New York and being hungry. It's like, man, I am appreciative of the moment. I have to say, Tim. I mean, this is 3 years ago. I had brain surgery, and I thought, what's better? What's better, to be on stage in front of a full house or brain surgery? Well, being on stage. So I wasn't scared or nervous. I just felt like this is right. And I really, really enjoyed it. I've worked with Patrick a lot this year, and we had screened it. Not screened it. We had rehearsed in smaller theater spaces, so we were really ready for this moment. And so it was great.
I'm so happy for you. That is so incredible. Yeah, because my problem is I might do something and it works and it's successful, but then I have to jump over and start something, and I don't take the time to really absorb the moment. So I'm glad you did. Because that's very important.
I've been there, and I know that, but I think that Tim, I've faced some certain challenges, and I do think that being blind, I need, for instance, like setting up to do tech for this show, they were going to give us an hour, and I never play this card, Tim. I said, look, I'm blind, things take longer, I need more time. So they give me 2 hours, and we used every minute of it. So good. I think maybe I'm not always staring at my phone, right? And so I'm like old school in that regard. I'm like, okay, maybe some boring moments, but also some moments where I'm like, this is it. This is life, Tim. And this is. I'm sharing a story that is. Oh God, it was so personal to me, Tim. I was like, my mother was there in the front row, and I think she started crying about a minute in. And my mother's Irish; she doesn't cry. Right? So, I think I've seen her cry twice in my life. So I just to have that moment, to have. I had a very diverse audience. I had friends in wheelchairs and friends who were blind, and all kinds of, and I just think they really appreciated it. It was like, I'll tell you a tiny bit about what the show is about.
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, so it took me a long time to write this show, Tim. I don't know why. Like, I play a 12-year-old boy in the show, which at first I thought, is this going to work? And then I thought, well, hell, it's going to work. Because in the 6th grade, 1984, I was at an all-white Catholic school in 1984 Boston.
You're from Boston originally.
I'm originally from Boston. And a little enclave that in New York speak could have been in Queens maybe, or out in Staten Island. And my vision began to fail. And it got worse very, very rapidly. And they didn't have the resources they needed for me in a small Catholic school. And I found myself very quickly in the middle of the year being transferred to a primarily black public school across town. And this was the height of the busing era, and race relationships in Boston were at their worst, and police violence. And I found myself getting on that little bus that we see, disabled kids even today, being sent an hour across the city to this public school. But Tim, it was so weird because I think my mother was very afraid, and it turned our life upside down. But I ended up getting into that bus and meeting kids for the first time in my life from all over the city.
Nice.
So there were black kids and white kids and albino kids and kids that were Cambodian. And for the first time in my life, I met kids like me who were disabled. And so I think when you're 12, you don't think of it that way, Tim. It was just like we all knew we were a little different, I'd say, and that we didn't always fit in, and all of a sudden here we were thrown together, and although we were very different, we really bonded. And I think that other people might see, that short bus and those disabled kids. Tim, we were in there singing Rick James and singing Donna Summer, and she's from Dorchester. She's where I'm from in Boston, and we were like, hot stuff, baby. So it was not like. And this is so. But
it was they because of your visibility issues, they put you in special education. Is that correct?
Right, and really it was
because they just didn't have the resources or didn't know.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have the resource. I mean, it was traumatic to have to leave a school I'd been at since I was a little kid, and it was a neighborhood school, but it was really the right thing. I mean, I went to an area, that eventually I would learn Braille and learn how to use a cane, and so. It was a difficult change, but it was certainly necessary. I mean, and so, and as I say in the play, no more uniforms and no more creepy nuns. So,
I love you're always looking on the bright side.
Well, and it's funny. So I do think that there are some moments that a kid is in the play going blind, and that is very hard. And I think that there are some emotional moments, and anyone who's, had an illness, maybe thought about cancer or any kind of disease is like, oh, I probably can identify to going to the doctors a lot and the fear that is. And I hope that I capture how strange it is that, especially in Boston, at that time, I'd be sent over to Harvard and MIT and and be shot with lasers. It doesn't seem real. It didn't seem real at the time.
Wow.
I'm living in a time when this is a time before, if we can remember, Tim, there are no cell phones.
Right.
There's no internet.
Right. Yeah.
We were all, I don't know what people did before internet. Gnomes. Do you remember the gnome?
Yeah.
Right? We all had gnomes in our house, and Hummels and things like that at my grandmother's house. And then all of a sudden they're like, by the way, kid, you're going to come and get shot with a laser. I thought they were just in Star Wars. I really did. I thought it was Star Wars. And then boom, I was back in school. And at that time, it was just like, wow. We would pick kids up from the projects and really rough parts of town, and kids from all over. And hopefully I'm not giving too much away, but really I got very into breakdancing, and that was our thing. And we used to practice in the bathroom, and we would practice whenever we could. And like we had our friend Van, who was in a wheelchair, as I say, he couldn't do top rock because he couldn't walk, but he can do down rock. He can get down on the floor. And so, yeah.
I was just watching part of Beat Street yesterday.
Are you serious?
It's all synchronistic.
That is great. And it's like, and it's funny how quickly that came and went, right? It's like, man, but, for a very formative time in my life, it was so important to me, and the clothes and the songs. And at the same time, I was going blind. And so,
my goodness.
It's so, I think it's taken me so long to tell the story, Tim. And
Right.
I'm really happy I told this story, because I sat around maybe waiting for someone else to tell a story about a kid going blind with, crazy bus drivers who are unbelievable, and kids breakdancing and ninjas and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and no one was writing this story, Tim. I was like, I better go ahead and tell this story, because otherwise I'm going to be waiting a long time.
But those at that age, that's such a, like you said, a developmental stage in one's life, and awkward stage in one's life, and then to lose your ability to see is, and you've lost it completely. Is that correct?
Right back then. So yeah, I've been blind for a long time.
And just to, I cannot imagine the frustration and confusion and that you had to have been experiencing at that time, and now looking back at it. Like you said, riding the bus and you're singing, you remember the good, you remember the positive things and the fun times.
Well, yes, and I think that's how you don't go insane, Tim.
Yes,
right?
right.
I'm sure you've had friends and yourself and probably have had challenges in life, and it's like, are you telling me, Tim, that if you were in the hospital and your friends came to see you, we wouldn't be cracking jokes? And you know what I'm saying, right? Because what's going to make you better, right?
I'm with you 100%.
Do you think we're going to be there crying? Oh, Tim.
Yeah.
We'd be there to acknowledge it, but
and probably make jokes
and that's what, especially in kids, that's so important. And I think a lot of, to me, the difficulty in the play, because, God, I was confused and frustrated, but I was trying to move ahead and make friends and, learn my breakdancing moves. It's really like any memoir about my mother. And I think, my God, now that I have kids myself that are that age, like if one of my daughters went blind, like, oh my God, it would be, at least I would be familiar with it. It would be less shocking to me than it would be someone else. But I also had many health problems that I don't get into in the play necessarily. And she's just worried about me. Like, is he ever going to go to college? Is he going to find a life? Is he going to find love? Is he going to find a job? And all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God. And really, what I focused on the play, my mom had to really, really struggle to get me an education. And as I've gotten older and talked to other people, it's amazing. A lot of the people at the play were in their 20s. And I thought, they might not get this period. They might. And they came up to me afterwards and they're like, we experienced the same thing.
Wow.
Like, 10, 15 years ago, it's not a magic bullet. If you have a kid now who's, think of what's going on with the transgender kids, right? I watch them and I almost can't breathe, Tim, because I get so upset on their behalf, because I think, we're going through something different, but it is exactly the same. I got into this school, an exam school, and I shouldn't, and the teachers got together, and told the administration that I would be a fire hazard, that they couldn't have a blind kid at their school.
Oh, my God.
I mean, this school has been in existence for over 300 years, Tim. They've never had a blind student before, and I'm pretty sure they've never had one since. So, and you think in this day and age, oh, everything is, kumbaya and happy. It is not. It is not.
Wow.
There are still kids that are being treated like shit. Can I say that? Right. I mean,
whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, there are still kids that are
Wow.
that don't want to go to school, that instead of, you need to go to school. Right? At the end of the day, you need to get out of your house. You need to meet your peers, I believe, and you need to find your way in the world. And that's going to happen through acceptance. And kids are still struggling with that, and there are so many parents who have to fight to get their kids, whether it's ADHD or any kind of a learning disability, it doesn't ever end. I mean, they're fighting with the school boards, they're fighting, with the teachers' unions.
And one of the things that just drives me crazy, well, I don't have children, but it just seems like they try to put all children in the same box, like with the learning process, the whole thing. And all children are different.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like the testing, all of that.
And the thing that's really funny, Tim, is that on the surface, we celebrate difference, right? Like, of course, like, any liberal progressives, we're going to read one book after another, how much we love differences, right? And the kids are told this, but my kids are smart. All kids are smart. They're told with one hand, we love you because you're different, and with the other hand, but you better be the same.
You've got to be exactly like all the rest.
Right, because we're going to give you a test. I mean, this might sound crazy, Tim, and maybe I'm going off book here, but I thought, what do we test for in school? And really what we test for is, are these kids docile? Do they sit there and listen over and over again? Read this paragraph, and what is the answer? Well, Tim, we might read the paragraph and come up with different answers.
Absolutely.
And we're both smart, we're both funny, we're both engaging, but we might just see it differently.
Absolutely.
And I thought, why don't any of these schools have a test? Okay, kid, you have 30 seconds, come in and be funny. Right? And all of a sudden, it wouldn't be the same kids scoring the top all the time.
Right.
And it's always the kids, Tim, that have money, that have stable families, that can get them extra tutoring. And it's like, I live here in New York City. I live in Chelsea, right? And my kids go to a school where, who's in the plays? Who's number one? And they look very pale, and they look very wealthy, right? And it's like, wow, in the most progressive place in the world, it's not as equitable as I would hope, as you would hope, right? So it's like, I think the testing should change,
Yeah, I agree completely. But my God, some of the experiences that you have had, and I am so grateful that you share all these experiences in so many different media forms. Like your essays, you're an essayist.
Right.
And now for what, the New York Times, for Fence Magazine, can you tell us a little about that?
Of course, because now, I think you all who follow Tim, that Tim went on a beautiful trip to Paris recently, and the rest of us were sitting here eating McDonald's, and he's eating, or whatever, and he's
escargot.
He's eating croissant, the Champs-Elysees, and I'm like, screw you, Tim, right? But, we love you, Tim, but I'm like, you could have taken me. But a number of years ago, my wife, who's an incredible woman, of course, she's an HIV researcher, and we went over to Paris for the World AIDS Conference, and we've actually been able to travel around the world. That's a whole other story.
I wanted to kind of cover that in a minute, too.
So we were over in Paris, and I had researched the laws on, can I bring my seeing eye dog to Paris? Now, we all have this idea, Europeans are much more progressive than us, and they're more advanced than us, so everything will be...
And the French, that should be fine.
Yes, everything will be no problem at all. The French, right? So... I researched the laws, and my wife speaks French fluently, and this comes into play. And we go over there, and we get to the Airbnb. No, not Airbnb at the time. We had rented a very nice apartment because it was a great trip. It was my mom, her mom, the kids. It was we had an entourage, right? A dog, right? That's how we travel, right? And so we show up. And the woman comes down and she's like, "What is that dog?" Oh, pardon me.
That's okay.
What is that dog? What is that dog? Oh, yeah, no, right? And we're like, no, it's a guide dog and everything. And they're like, "Oh, no, you have to give us an extra €1,000 deposit for the dog." And we're like, "This is incredible. No way." So next thing you know, my wife and I are on the metro. We're in this gritty arrondissement, over and around 20th arrondissement.
20th, yeah.
Yeah, so while Tim is at the finest restaurants and everything, I'm going down into a dirty basement over in the 20th arrondissement where the French World Guide Dog headquarters are.
Oh my God.
Right? Yes, right.
Serious?
Yes, and my wife, who loves to fight, right, is just like, "Dad, they won't let us in our apartment." And the guy's like, "Oh, yes. This is terrible. This is the law protects, these dogs. Everything is safe." But
Well, yeah, didn't you research it ahead of time and found that dogs and everything, service dogs are perfectly fine, and when you get there, it's a different thing.
well, when I get there, they are perfectly fine, Tim. But it must be French dogs.
A French dog.
If your dog is French, the dog is allowed in the Tour la Jean, in the Louvre,
The boulangerie.
yeah, any place you want to bring a French dog, but your dog
American.
sadly is American.
I have never heard such a thing.
Right, so I'm sitting there like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? And the guy is French though. He's like, I tell you what we're gonna do. We're going to make your dog a fake ID, and your dog will become French.
Like on Old 42nd Street or something
Right.
for the dog.
Right, I'm thinking I haven't been 21 for a long time. Or 20. I haven't had a fake ID since who knows when. And they print it up.
Oh, my
Very
God.
official. They take a picture of me. They take a picture of the dog. And I'm like, but sir, they're gonna know I'm not French. And they're like, but your wife is French. She is Renee, right? Which is, my wife is Brazilian, not French. But yeah, so the rest of the time there, I went around using a fake ID for the dog.
Oh my God.
And Tim, it's
And it was fine.
it was fine, but it's one of those stories, Tim, and I feel like I only tell the same story over and over again. It's all fine, but it's like don't tell, don't ask, right? Or don't ask, whatever. Don't ask, don't tell. Whatever. It's like, okay, everything was fine, but is it fine? I mean, do you really? Because of course, then every time we're going to a restaurant and everything, it's like, well, are they going to know it's a fake ID? Are we really going to get in? So it's like, what do you? So there's that. You want it. We're always working toward being the same, right? Or being treated the same,
Well, globally,
right?
yes.
Having equity and feeling comfortable in your own skin, Tim. And this is why I'm like, and I'm a blind filmmaker, I'm a blind writer, but in my mind, I love reading about the early writing African American writers. I love gay writers. I met John Waters years ago. He spoke at a library conference I was at, and I was like, I felt the electricity. I was like, John, I want to be you, right? You have a voice, you have a spirit, you have fun, and you go out and you tell your stories, and that's what we all need to do.
Yes.
So, and it's like I feel like there shouldn't be barriers between us. Like this is that kind of story. This is this kind of story. Because, yeah, you tell me, it's a disabled story, and I'm thinking, oh, Helen Keller, this is going to be boring. right. Like, oh no, cry. Whereas I like to get out there and break dance and have some fun and some good music. But at the same time, hey, look, people are trying to hold us back. Fuck you, we're fighting.
But that's also what's so important about Sped Kid,
Right.
is for you to tell your story and tell it in your own way.
I thank you so much, Tim, because if I sat around and waited, for some, a Columbia MFA's like, oh, I'm going to talk about a Cambodian boat children in a wheelchair and an albino girl, there'd be puppets, there'd be robots, right?
Exactly.
It would just be like the kids came together and they built a fort or something, right? It wouldn't be they're singing Super Freak and they're making raps and they're getting in trouble and it's like, yeah.
Well, now, Sped Kid is, it's part of the United Solo Festival, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And it is at the Theater Row at 42nd and 9th Avenue in Theater 1. Now, how can people find out about tickets? Now, it's going to be Wednesday, April 10 at 8:30.
That is correct. So I think the best way to get tickets is you can either go on my website, which is adamlinn.com. So that's very easy.
And that's LINN.
That is correct. No spaces or anything, obviously. And then, or spedkidtheshow.com is a site I've set up with a buy now big ticket button right on it. So those would be the easiest ways to get there. You could also look up the show through the United Solo Festival website. I mean, there are many, many tremendous shows. People should check them all out.
So now you kind of touched on and then just zipped right by your wife. Tell me about this amazing and incredible woman. My God.
How much is she paying you, Tim? I got up in front of Lincoln Center, 1,000 people, tell this beautiful love story about her. It's probably the best thing I ever wrote. It's been downloaded a million times, and she's always saying to me, "But when are you going to write me another love story?" And I'm like, "When are you going to write me a love story?" You know? And she's like, "Well, you were the writer." And, you know, and it's like, well, she is the doctor. That's true. She's going around helping people with HIV around the world. What can I say, Tim? I mean, we met on the A train. How do you like that?
Yes,
New York
that's my train.
Right. We actually met online.
In Washington Heights.
That's right.
Yeah.
We met online and we went for a date. She's like, "I know you. You're the guy from the A train." I mean, briefly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she is from Brazil, and she worked for many, many years for Columbia University. She got Columbia University sent her to Africa, where she became an expert in South Africa and Mozambique on HIV/AIDS. She builds clinics. I mean, I had no idea of the instances of AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa. I knew nothing about this before I met her. I mean, there are countries where it's 30, 40, 50% of the population.
Yeah.
And it's so important that it's such an important issue. And now she works for a world like a health organization that helps people around the world called FHI. Very similar work. I mean, they're helping with all kinds of infectious diseases, and now she's working to help ferret out the next pandemic.
And she does that full time. She travels to different countries and helps, or does she have a residency at somewhere here in the U.S.?
Well, she lives here but
Right.
But she travels a ton, which is fantastic for her because she loves New York, but New York's not big enough for her. Pardon me.
One of the biggest cities on the planet is not big enough.
Right. But we've been to Mexico City and Sao Paulo, both even bigger. But she loves Africa. She loves the open sky. She loves the sun, and she loves helping people. Here she's in an office and talking, in meetings and emails.
Right,
and I think she has 5,000 people working for her at this point. I mean, she has all these teams around the world. She goes to the Philippines. She goes to Burma. She goes to Angola.
Wow.
And
She sounds like a keeper.
She's a keeper. I mean, the only thing is, Tim, that's good is I love to cook. I'm not one of these guys who has no idea. I know how to go to the store, Trader Joe's. I know how to buy meat. I know how to buy vegetables. I know how to buy carbohydrates. I get the kids fed. I know how to dress them, get them out the door.
Wow.
So I feel like a lot of men say, "Oh, we help out," and you're really not doing anything. And I would probably be that guy too if I could. But if my wife is in Africa for a month, I guess that I must do something, Tim, right? I'm doing something. I must be, so.
But also, I mean, being legally blind, but still.
Totally blind. Yeah.
Yes, totally blind. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Fake blind. Right? Yeah, totally blind.
No, so you're totally blind and still managing to go shopping and getting the kids dressed in the morning and cooking, and that is quite a lot. Quite a lot.
I mean,
I'm very impressed.
Our house is often a mess, Tim. We have 2 dogs too. That doesn't always look like Martha Stewart lives there. And my wife is an intellectual, quite frankly. She, so we have some dirty dishes piled up, but I mean, exactly. I mean, we don't know what we don't know in life, right? And it's every person I know with a disability, I mean, if you're not out shopping and feeding yourself, unless you have $1 million hidden away, which most people don't, in New York, $10 million hidden away, you don't have someone coming and feeding you. So we're all getting that done somehow, paying the electric light bill and, getting the food, getting, my kids to school. Now, granted, my kids love to trick me. When my daughter was younger, she'd be dressed in yellow rain boots on a sunny day, and in her party, she loved to wear her princess dress and stuff like that. And if we're in Chelsea, if someone came up to me on the street and was like, "I love the way your daughter's dressed," I'd be thinking, "Oh,
what did she wear?"
I know she snuck into something, right? But I mean, the funny thing, Tim, at the end of the day, I mean, you can read a million parenting blogs where they'll get you upset. They just want to sell you stuff.
Right.
I mean, if you get your kids fed and you love them and you hug them and you put them to bed, I mean, it's great living in an apartment. I think, my kids would run up and down the halls here. They're doormen. Yeah. I mean, New York's a great place for a blind person to have kids. So
You have really created such a full, incredible life for yourself.
I keep things interesting, Tim.
Well, that's good. It's good material to write about.
Well, exactly. My wife and I love to fight. I had, just in case I'm going to, you look on Facebook and it's like, wow, these families are always smiling. And I'm thinking, every time we have a fight, we should put that on Facebook, right? Like fight book. Like every time I say, we are late for school, get the fuck out the door, put the hat on your head. I don't care if it's raining. We're not going back for the umbrella. I'm having a heart attack. I mean, that's really what my life is like, Tim. And then of course I get to school. I'm like, hey, perfect blind dad here. Yeah. Don't get social services involved. You know what I mean? But yeah, Tim, I've always liked to keep things interesting.
Absolutely. And again, it's so creative. So let's go back to where we first met, which was on the film set for Before We Get to Seattle.
Yes.
Now you wrote that. You directed,
correct,
and acted in it, and
yes, I had a small role. I drove the car. I don't, which was fun. The magic of film. The blind guy gets to drive the car.
Oh my goodness! Where did that come from? Where did the idea from that come from?
The idea came from I was working at the time with April Moskus. She was she had written a story called Heartbreaker, which was about two girls who are friends, and one of them wants to go to Seattle in the '90s and pursue like a career in rock. And so that kind of kicked around for a while, and she had a background in film, and I had a background in film, and so. Yeah, I mean, what happens with short films, it's like, okay, it's a calling card. Let's make something that people can watch that's a proof of concept. Like, what would this look like? And so, pretty quickly we sat down and we wrote a short film. I think it was 10 minutes long. What does it look like that this girl is on the day that she's getting ready to flee to Seattle? And she, comes to a deli here in New York where the girls live, and she goes in and is ordering from her friend who's working behind the sandwich counter, and the deli is packed with New Yorkers who want their food. People in line like Tim, say, who wants his deviled ham, like it or not, and doesn't care that a 15-year-old girl is pouring her heart out to her friend. Yeah, so it was typical of me, and that it was a very heartfelt moment. These two girls going to maybe part forever, and at the same time, I hoped some kind of over-the-top humor, usually involving food, because in the reality of the world, if you have a service job, you could drop dead. They don't care. You could keep working.
As long as I get my sandwich.
Work with one hand and hug your friend with the other hand, right? And so that's what that piece is about. And I don't, all of our creative endeavors are our babies, right, Tim?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I'd say, I love that film, and I love your performance. I mean, it's still to me very, it's so fresh and funny. I mean, if I've learned anything as a director is hire funny people, vibrant people, try and stay out of their way, and let them shine on screen, right? I mean, don't you find that with interviewing?
I love that. Yeah, I love that. But so you've had experience, or you studied film, is that correct?
I did.
But film, to me, it seems like such a visual medium. That how did you get pulled into film, or like what drew you to film?
Because I'm insane, Tim.
Okay. Moving on.
Blind people are supposed to tune pianos or do various various other things. Hey, when I was a kid, not that long ago, that comes up in my play. They came to the house and told my mother, "Oh, he can tune pianos."
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. So that's when my mother first lost her mind and started saying, "Get out of my house!" Right? I mean, that became a theme. But no, so. I was actually working out on the West Coast. I lived in San Francisco for a number of years, and I loved it out there. It was great. But I was working at a big bank doing finance stuff, and it's funny, Tim. Like I just got an image in my mind, and I would be dead, and there would be a tombstone that say he was a mediocre broker. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I had a medical condition where I had like a number of tumors and brain tumors. So I think, unlike like a lot of young people, I was really conscious of mortality in life, and that we live once.
Yeah.
And I think people were always like, "You're reading all the time, Adam. Write a book." And I thought, I'm reading all the time, but no one else is reading all the time, right? People go to see movies. And the rationale I had, and I still have, whether it comes to plays or anything else, I think I see it in my mind when I tell you a story. I know I'm like, Tim is on the couch with me. He's holding a mic. I'm on a couch. There's, a pool table over there. Like, I can see it. And if you have a camera and you move it around, so I can tell the story, and then you using the camera can tell the picture. So with film, yes, it's a very visual medium, but it's also a spoken medium and a written medium. So it's like, okay, I tell the story, and I can't necessarily describe the different greens of the trees, but if I'm using a camera, the camera does that for me. I don't know what color shirt you're wearing right now, Tim.
Actually, green.
Green, okay, yeah, I don't, but, and
Are you sure you're blind?
Yeah. Found out by Tym Moss. He kills Tym Moss on camera, right? An imposter. I'd get on Apple News. Sped Kid would sell so many tickets. He's fighting the charges. But okay, is it medium green? Is it light green? Is it Kelly green? Is it emerald green? Is it
kind of forest green?
Tree boa green? But the camera would tell that, right? So I say, Tim looking, debonair, dapper as always, looking sharp in a green shirt, and the camera tells you exactly what color green. So all you sighted people, very comfortable. Okay, that's forest green. We're good. So yes, but the funny thing, so I thought of myself as a screenwriter. So I moved to New York, and probably a million stories you've had from people over the years. So I come to New York, and boom, I'm at NYU, right? So yeah, I was in the graduate program at NYU doing writing, and I saw myself as a screenwriter. And with the story, I could tell you, look, I can write the story, and the camera will tell the story. And I met this fascinating woman, and this could be a whole other issue.
Now, were you studying film at NYU?
Yes.
Okay, because Tisch is an incredible school.
It was,
for film.
Yes, just brilliant minds, and just I love the way. If we can back up a tiny bit, I got a role in a film. There was a casting call for a blind actor, and they were shooting this film. And I remember we started shooting September 6th, 2001, right? It was called My Blind Brother. It was done by a brilliant director called Sophie Goodhart. And the movie had, God, I'm blanking on his name right now. And he played Buster in Arrested Development. He played one of the brothers, and yeah. And so it's about a blind swimmer who's swimming across Long Island Sound to raise money, and his brother who's in the boat. And the guy is a complete flaming asshole. And he's mean to everybody, and he thinks he's a star, and he shits on his poor brother who helps him out. And I read this script. I was living on the West Coast, and I read it, and I was like, I love this. This is not Helen Keller, right? This is the funniest thing. And I thought this director was so brilliant. And I did it over the phone. I auditioned for her, and she's like, you're brilliant. You live here in New York? And I said, no, I'm not exactly in New York. And she's like, but you'll come for the film? There's no pay. I'm like, yep, I'll be there. And so everyone thought I was nuts. And I said, you know what? They're not casting blind people in great films every freaking day. And this is how life is. Jumped on a plane, came to New York, was in this film. And I was addicted so fast, Tim. Here was people that, they could have been in medical school, they could have been in law school, and instead we're out on a beautiful sunny day, the cameras are rolling, the craft services, the makeup, lights, camera, action. They had me shooting a gun in the movie. I was like, it was a starting pistol for the race, and I was like, oh my God, this is like I'm breathing and drink like
right, you're living.
Oh my God, the air is like wine. I'm like, this is it. So yeah, I moved to New York, and I started writing. I went to NYU in the writing program, and I started writing. And this
you were saying you met a woman?
Yes, this wonderful woman. She came over to me, who was a filmmaker. She was from Russia, and she's like, "Your plan is to walk around New York with a pile of paper?" And I had written a script called Anonymous Sex, which was about a blind male prostitute.
Oh my God!
And this woman, had a very colorful past, and she loved my script. And she's like, you're not going to get anywhere with a pile of paper. You need to make a movie. And so I sat down and I wrote a short called Smell the Light, which was about a blind Buddhist meditating in a yoga studio and fighting this internal demon, who was played by my friend George Ashiotis, who's one of the most pioneering, fantastic blind actors. He worked with Richard Harris. He is just so great, George. And it was just the two of us, and we did this short, and it got me rolling. I brought it to festivals, and they were like, "Now, wait, who directed it?" And I was like, "Me." And they're like, "But wait, aren't you blind?" I'm like, "Yes." Right? And so, yeah, I did that film, and that was great. So then I had, obviously at that point, build up a little resume and did the short with you, Tim. And yeah, it's been an ongoing thing.
That is so incredible. That's what I love about you is you just do it. Right. Whatever you want to do, you do it.
I try, Tim. I mean, maybe not. I'll never jump out of a plane. I tell people I'm never going to jump out of a plane. Back in 2006, I had some surgery on my spine. I said, well, when I'm done, I'm going to run a marathon. And I woke up and I said, I'm never running a marathon. Right? My body's been ripped up enough. So
don't need that.
And this is all I ever tell people. I mean, you can have a million seminars on like diversity in film or diversity in hiring, and I think that's a great way to get invited to a seminar. But if you really want to do it, man, I don't know. Start your own business. Okay, Tim, are you waiting around for MSNBC to give you a show?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I'm just sitting on the sofa waiting for that.
It would be fantastic. Right. I mean, you should. But until that happens, get a camera, get a microphone.
Absolutely.
And my God, I love watching you and Wendy so much.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
It's like, oh my God, because you bring out other voices, right? And it's like,
that's
man,
the whole point.
Bring me out. I want to be in there.
Well, I've got you booked, actually.
And I mean. And it's amazing because, and it's what's great about New York, Tim. It's an environment. It's like I see you doing your show, and it's like you don't even know I'm out there on a given Wednesday afternoon at 2:00.
Right? Wow. Yes.
Wait, is anyone watching? And it's like, yes. I have to pick my daughter up at 2:45, so I always miss the end, and I have to come back. And I'm not kidding, which a blind person should never do. I was listening to the show in my ear when I was walking down the street the other day, and I'm like, I would kill my kids if they. I'm trying to think who Wendy had on as a guest. She was fantastic. She was a German singer. And yeah,
she I wasn't there, or I don't remember.
Well, I'm getting. You were there because you were talking about singing in Austria, and in eating the pastries, and the wonderful time that you had over there. And I was like, I don't want to miss the end. And so I was walking down the street listening to Tim, and I was like, if I get run over by a truck, Tim will feel terrible. So. But my point is...
But you didn't.
No, I didn't. I was careful. But my point is, how does a blind, person make films? What does he do? Because in the back of my mind, I think, well, there's an audience out there, right? There's a festival that will show my, hopefully I can show it at Film Forum. Hopefully I can go on Tim. Because you need an entire environment. You don't make a film and then throw it into the ocean.
Right.
I need a reporter to come and talk about me. I need actors to be in it. Yep. I need to, a restaurant owner to say, like, look, you can have us, you can, have your after party at our place.
Right.
And all that, has to come into effect. So it's like, I'm so appreciative of what you're doing and keeping the voices alive.
Oh,
it's just,
you.
It's just.
Well, and I am extremely appreciative of what you're doing also.
Thank you so much.
Just, again, sharing your life. You're giving insight into a unique life that most people, they get so busy with day to day with their life, they don't realize what you're experiencing. Right. And you give so much insight to that, and I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, thank you so much. And I do hope that I have some. My wife says, okay, you can be an asshole, but you do have insight, and that's why I love you, and that's why
you're an asshole with insight.
Right. And that's what I should put on my shirt, not Sped Kid. That's okay.
That's your new tagline.
Asshole with insight, right? And do not run out, folks, and buy that website. Yeah. Let Tim and me get that website, okay? It's probably already bought, And I bet it's bought by an asshole, and I bet he doesn't have insight. But it is amazing, Tim. I listen to so many people on your show who are artistic, and whether they're singers or dancers, so much of it comes down to the same thing, especially as we get a little older. But people in their 20s, okay, screw them, right? And they just want to get ahead. But we all are so similar, I think.
Right.
And it's like, I have insight as a blind person, and I have my own challenges. But, what coming up, in the 80s and 90s, what was it like to be gay and have... New York seems so open. It's not that open, right? There are so many challenges to everything. What are trans kids putting up with now? And hopefully they can come to New York, 5 years from now. Who knows? I might be dead, Tim. Right? But they can, see. Hey, did you hear about the blind guy who had a play, had a And it's like, well, that's pretty wild, but if he did it, I hope I can do it,
Right,
or I can do it, right?
Absolutely, yes. Well, you're very inspiring, like, very much so.
Thank you, Tim. We're all putting a brick in, you know what I mean? It's like we're all building the pyramid.
Yeah.
We're all pushing, a brick of our own.
But my thing is my life is so much of my daily activities and daily life is based on visual, on what I see from reaching down to grab a glass, or to walking down the street, or to check my phone, look at my phone, and to have that taken away, like the just day-to-day life that you have created and developed is an amazing insight for those of us who do have sight.
It's funny. I read a friend of mine named Andrew Leland just last year wrote a book, coincidentally for our crowd. He's Neil Simon's grandson, right? So that's cool. He has a good lineage. He wrote a book called Country of the Blind, because he himself is losing his sight in his 30s and 40s. And he wrote about it, and he had such a different perspective than I did, because it happened to me when I was a kid.
Right.
And he's a reporter, a cultural critic. So it's such a great book. And I'm thinking, I know nothing about being blind, and I am blind, right? Like, how dumb am I? But he writes this line. He says, being blind is a radical way of being.
Yeah.
So here I am, bringing my kids to school, this white guy with, sandy brown hair with a little gray in it, and my blue jacket or my black, my sweatshirt, looking like every other dad on the street. And I think I'm very ordinary. I really do, Tim.
Yeah,
I really
that's
do.
Great.
I mean, I'm the ultimate ordinary guy. My kids watch the same shows as all the other kids. We can talk about the same things. I listen to the same NPR, But at the same time, I can't see. So it's like I'm stepping off the curb, but it's not the same curb you're stepping off of. Like, I have to hear the car.
Right.
I can't see the car, right? So I'm creating this world in my head, and I've been doing it for so long that it's not seamless. It's very different than you do, but hopefully we can be together. Right. And I mean, Tim, you're different than other, but we all find a way that we put those worlds together. And sometimes they're parallel, and sometimes they're not. Right. I mean, it can be quite different. But it's funny because, and I think if I had never gone blind, I could easily be the most boring person in the world. Like Tim, I'd have a car. I'd be living in Westchester. I might be golfing. I'd be, Tym Moss, who's that guy? I don't know who that is. And instead, I'm fucking meeting John Waters and saying, like, John, I want to be you. Because now I understand, like what it is to be different. And, what it is to, I don't want to watch, John Hughes movies, The Breakfast Club and everything, and it's like, and see a bunch of people who aren't me.
Yeah.
I want to see me on stage, and it's like, okay, there's a few blind people or a few disabled people. They're usually not funny. They're usually not sarcastic. They're not usually doing their own thing. I want to see a range of people.
Absolutely.
I remember, it's funny. I remember back in the 90s, my roommate in college was like, and I was like, Melrose Place is really not that good a show. He's like, hey, there was a gay kiss. It's the only one I get, right? He's like, I know the show sucks, but they didn't.
We got to take what we get.
I was watching. I thought, they're going to go up in the trees. They're going to go up in the trees. They didn't. There was a gay kiss. So now I have to watch it. And it's like, it's a silly moment to some people, but for him, a 19-year-old, I mean,
absolutely
really big. Now, have I ever seen two blind people kiss on stage? I guess I have, or on screen. It's like, I hadn't thought about it. I was watching something the other day, and they were like, oh yeah, Crazy Rich Asians is the first major movie in which two Asian characters kiss. And I'm like, what? How? I
didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not Asian, you're not Asian. It's maybe not on our radar as much, right? I mean, but it's like, when I hear something like that, it really hits me. I think, two people in wheelchairs, two people who are deaf. Like, you just can go down the list. And it's like, wow, we have not come very far. We've come a little bit,
right?
A little tiny bit, but... Sidney Poitier, you got the ball rolling, but man, we got to keep it rolling.
Exactly, absolutely.
So...
Well, again, I am just pleading with everyone. Be sure to go see Sped Kids. Adam LINN here is just remarkable, a remarkable human being and remarkable storyteller, and I guarantee it will be an incredible experience for you. It's called Sped Kid, which is on his shirt.
That's right.
Yes.
Special ed kid. That's what we got called in the old days. And I said, I'm going to take that back. And it gave me unity with, whether you're blind or deaf or in a wheelchair, we were just Sped Kids.
Yeah.
And that's who we were. So.
And you can see this Wednesday, April 10th at 8:30. Go to his website, which is AdamLinn, LINN.com.
That's correct.
Or
Sped Kid the Show.
SpedKidTheShow.com.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Great music. Tim will be waiting for you outside the theater. He'll give everybody a hug.
Yeah.
I'm pimping out Tim. I'm not afraid. This is a business. We need rear ends and seats, right?
Absolutely.
So.
I'll take one for the team. I'll hug everybody.
Everyone who goes to see Sped Kid is good looking. Take one for the team. These are the beautiful people, Tim, right?
So is there any closing remarks or anything you would like to say?
Oh, God. I mean, so many things I could say. I love to talk, but thank you, Tim. I mean, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, Tim, you came all the way here. We're doing this interview. The show is coming up soon. Oh, God, I appreciate you. I appreciate this city. I appreciate the artistic community.
Yep.
I appreciate that we can have a show without masks on, right? Last month, I was like, please, 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 no masks.
Yes.
Hear me. Right. Let me hear you. And, please come to the show, and you won't regret it. It'll be wonderful. Sped Kid, Sped Kid.
Yes.
That's it, Tim. Thank you so much.
All right. Go to SpedKidsTheShow.com.
You got it.
All right. Thank you, Adam LINN.
Oh, Tym Moss, thank you.